record an emission spectrum. This is an emission spectrophotometer. So, what it has inside is it has a lamp, but this time it is a xenon lamp, which is much more powerful and has emission over the entire UV visible infrared wavelength range. This is approximately where the lamp is, this is where the monochromator is, and this is where you keep the sample. So, the light comes from this direction, it is focused at the center of this cuvette holder. Well, this glass vial in which we typically keep our sample, or glass or quartz vial, is called a cuvette, and as we said the last day, emission is recorded at 90 degrees. So, the detector is kept somewhere on the other side. And do not forget, we have two monochromators here, an excitation monochromator on this side and an emission monochromator on this side. To start with, we are going to keep our sample in here, keep the excitation monochromator at a particular position and vary the emission monochromator. That way, we are going to record an emission spectrum. Later on, we will do just the opposite and record an excitation spectrum. This is our sample, right. Now, I am going to put it inside the cuvette holder and record the spectrum. Before we begin, please have a look at the setup here. The way we have set this up, we already know that the absorption is around 430 nanometer. So, we are exciting the sample at 440 nanometer and we are going to record the emission from 450 nanometer to 600 nanometer. Remember, emission usually occurs at longer wavelength unless it is an upconverting material. Now, the other important parameters to note are excitation and emission slits, and you might see that they are written in nanometer. So, what this slit means is the bandwidth of the light that goes through at this wavelength. So, essentially we are saying that we are exciting with 450 nanometer plus minus 2.5 nanometer, and when we record, then also we record at plus minus 2.5 nanometer kind of bandwidth. And for now, we are going to record at 120 nanometer per minute, and we are using an averaging time of half a second. We are going to change this and we will see how that affects our spectrum. The last one is the data interval we have kept at 1 nanometer. This is fairly common for UV visible range, but if required you can change it. So, this is our setup. I am now going to record an emission spectrum. So, you can see the spectrum building right here. Initially the intensity is very less. So, I will zoom in a little bit. Yeah, now you can see the spectrum forming, and once again it is forming point by point. Each point corresponds to a particular position of the emission monochromator, and as you might see, the quality of spectrum is not very good because I am doing it very quickly. The integration time that we are using is only about half a second per point. So, after this we are going to go back to the setup and we will change it, and we will try to see whether there is any improvement in the quality of the spectrum. But while we record the spectrum, note the x axis once again is in wavelength in nanometer, y axis now is intensity in arbitrary unit. Now, it is arbitrary unit because the value that you get here depends on many things. It depends on what kind of slit width you use, what is the lamp intensity that particular day, and so on and so forth. What is the absorbance of the sample? So, this value as such does not have too much of a meaning. However, it can be converted to a meaningful quantity by doing a comparative study and working out the quantum yield. This is something we will not discuss in this course. Whoever is interested may go back to our discussion in the molecular spectroscopy course and also refer to the previous module where we have introduced it in a small way. Now, let us go back to the setup. Now, what we will do is we will keep everything the same, but we are going to change averaging time to 1.5 second. But before we do that, let me show you the spectrum once again. Let us remember when the range is from 0 to 40 y axis, we captured the entire spectrum and it is rather jagged. Let us remember the shape of this spectrum. Now, let me increase this to 1.5 second. Everything else is same, excitation wavelength is same, excitation slit width, emission slit width, data interval, everything is same. The only thing that has changed is averaging time, which means the number of times you record at one particular point and number of times you average. Instead of staying on a point for half a second, now we are staying for 1.5 seconds. Let us see how the spectrum changes if we do that. It has started recording. You might see this small line coming up. So, what we see is it is more or less following the spectrum that we had recorded earlier, but the question is we have made it slower. So, does the quality become any better or not? We will come back to that question once we have reached the maximum, but perhaps minor point to note here is that you see we are recording the emission spectrum for the same sample a few seconds after we had recorded the first one, and you can see that they are not exactly overlapped. This is why you have to do several experiments and take an average, because there are many things that affect the absolute intensity that you record. So, now see, if you look at the rise, it is a little less jagged than what it was for the initial spectrum, and even in the maximum position it is not really as noisy as it was. So, what we have here is that we have a sample that is not very highly emissive. In such a case, you have to use a longer integration time. In fact, even 1.5 second is obviously not enough for this measurement. You have to use something that is longer if you want to get a really good spectrum. Let us do that. Now, we will play a game of patience and change this to 5. So, it says that it is going to take 12.35 minutes to complete. Let us see whether investing this much of time has any effect on the spectrum. Okay, we have started recording. You can see something creeping up here, but it is going to take some time. So, let us take a short break and come back and show you the spectrum when it has been recorded. All right. So, we have given it several minutes, and this is the spectrum that we have got so far. So, now you see we will not record the entire spectrum, because the point we are trying to make can be made with this data. So, if you go from the first spectrum to second spectrum, there is improvement. If you go from the second spectrum to third spectrum, when we increase the integration time from 1.5 seconds to 5 seconds, there is still some improvement. So, if you keep on increasing the integration time, some improvement or the other is going to come, but the question is, when will you stop? There is always an optimal point beyond which there is no need to go, because if you see, the absorbance is also going down with every successive measurement, which might indicate that your sample is going bad due to prolonged exposure to light. More often than not, that is what happens with organic samples especially. So, one needs to be careful and judicious and decide upon this integration time. Maximizing or minimizing is not the solution. You have to optimize it and find the best possible time for your measurement. Right. So, we stop this measurement here, and now I will show you another kind of measurement that can be done on an emission spectrophotometer. As we had said, there are two monochromators, one here and one there, one excitation, one emission. In the experiments that we have done so far, we have recorded an emission spectrum, meaning the excitation spectrum has been held in a particular position and the emission spectrum has been scanned. Let us do just the opposite now. So, here we see the emission maximum is around 500 a little less than 500 nanometer or so. So, let us set the emission spectrum. I want to record an excitation scan now. Let us set the emission spectrum to say 530 nanometer, and let us do a scan from say 300 nanometer to say 500 nanometer. And since we do not want to spend so much of time, I will change the averaging time to 1 second. Okay. So, that is what it is, and let us see what the spectrum looks like. Yeah. Now, we record the excitation scan. You can see the spectrum building up right here. So, the reason why we want to do an excitation scan is this. Remember, what we are doing in this experiment is that we have kept our emission wavelength fixed at some point, and we are changing the excitation wavelength. Now, we might remember that we have discussed in class that intensity of emission is emission quantum yield multiplied by intensity of light absorbed. So, everything else being same, if we change the excitation wavelength, what is changing is intensity of light absorbed, because that is related to absorbance, which is a function of wavelength. So, even though we have kept the intensity of emission, we have kept the emission wavelength same, intensity of emission is going to change, and it is going to change because now you are scanning the range over which the molecule absorbs, and wherever it absorbs more, we are going to get a greater emission intensity, because intensity of absorption is accordingly higher. And for an absolutely pure sample, or for a sample in which the ground state is absolutely heterogeneous, we are going to get a situation where the excitation spectrum should exactly match the absorption spectrum, because for dilute samples especially, you can simplify the expression 1 minus 10 to the power minus a, and you will see that emission intensity is going to depend linearly on absorbance. So, for dilute samples in which the ground state is absolutely non-heterogeneous, absolutely homogeneous, we expect that this excitation spectrum that we are recording is going to be superimposable with absorption spectrum if they are normalized to the same height. Now, sometimes that is not the case. In this case, for example, we see we are getting an excitation maximum at around 410 nanometer, whereas the absorption maximum was at 430 nanometer. What does that mean? It can mean two things. First, your sample might be impure, and second, your sample might not be made up of one thing. You might have a heterogeneous ground state. Maybe there is a ketoenol tautomerism in the ground state, and that is what is reflected. If the keto form and the enol form are not equally emissive, if the quantum yields are different, then it will be reflected in a mismatch of absorption and excitation spectrum. This is a very, very important point to remember, because mismatch of absorption spectrum with excitation spectrum can mean something very bad, that you have an impurity, or something very good, that you have an interesting system at hand where the ground state is heterogeneous. So, please remember, when you want to do emission spectroscopy, please do not just go and record the emission spectrum. The correct way of doing it is record the absorption spectrum first, then record the emission spectrum, finally record the excitation spectrum and see if it overlays with the absorption spectrum. If it does, then there is nothing to worry. If it does not, then either you have something to worry about, or you have an interesting story at hand. That is what we wanted to show you in how actual steady state absorption and emission spectra are recorded. Thank you.